Tokyo Ghoul, an anime series created by Sui Ishida. The story explores a world where ghouls that look human but must consume human flesh to survive, hidden among the population and constantly hunted by a government agency called the Commission of Counter Ghoul, or the CCG. Late in the afternoon, our timid protagonist Ken Kaneki goes on a date with the enigmatic and beautiful Rizz Kamishiro, unaware that this encounter will change his life forever. The two bond over their shared love for literature, with Kaneki feeling an unfamiliar comfort in Rise's presence. As their date ends, Rise confides her fear of the recent ghoul attacks in the city, prompting Kaneki to offer to walk her home for her safety. As they walk through a dimly lit alley, Kaneki confesses his feelings for Rise, and she seemingly reciprocates. However, Rise's intentions are far from innocent. She reveals her true nature as a ghoul, and attacks Kaneki with sadistic delight. He tries desperately to escape, but she overpowers him, throwing him against a wall and leaving him helpless. Just as Rise is about to devour him, fate intervenes. A bundle of steel beams falls from above, crushing Rise and saving Kaneki's life at the last possible moment. As Kaneki drifts in and out of consciousness, he hears the doctors discussing the procedure, unaware of the profound transformation taking place within him. When Kaneki awakens, he quickly discovers that he can no longer eat normal human food. Every attempt to eat results in violent rejection, and the news confirms his worst fears. Ghouls are unable to consume anything but human flesh. The horrifying realization dawns on him, and he has become the very monster he once feared. His best friend, Hideyoshi Nagachika, grows concerned about Kaneki's isolation, but Kaneki refuses any visitors. Wandering the city in a daze, Kaneki is tormented by the scent of human flesh all around him, struggling desperately to suppress his new, monstrous hunger. In a moment of despair, he even tries to stab himself, hoping to deny the reality of his existence, but his body has already changed beyond recognition. Drawn by an irresistible aroma reminiscent of his mother's cooking, Kaneki stumbles upon a corpse being devoured by another ghoul named Kazuo. Kazuo offers Kaneki a share, but another ghoul, Nishiki Nishio, appears and kills Kazuo, claiming the territory as his own. Nishiki suffocates Kaneki, suspecting him of trespassing. Just as Kaneki is about to be killed, Toka Kirishima, also a ghoul, intervenes and orders Nishiki to leave, asserting her claim over the area. Nishiki was pissed and attacks Toka, but she was stronger than him, giving Nishiki a lot of bruises, and he runs. Kaneki remains tormented by his hunger and the horror of consuming human flesh.
No way, no way, no way, no way! There's no way that I can ever eat another person's flesh! Well, I won't, cause I'm a human!
Seeing his suffering, Toka forcefully helps Kaneki take his first bite. Kaneki remains in denial about his monstrous nature. He insists he's not like the other ghouls, especially Toka, who responds with anger and frustration. Toka, hardened by a life of suffering as a ghoul, can't sympathize with Kaneki's despair. To her, Kaneki's grief over his lost humanity is a luxury. She's been a ghoul since birth and never had a choice. She beats Kaneki, demanding to know what he thinks he is if not a monster, and reminds him that the hunger they endure is its own kind of hell. Their confrontation is interrupted by Kuzan Yoshimura, the gentle manager of Anteku Cafe. He stops Toka, inviting Kaneki inside and offering him coffee, the only thing, besides human flesh, that ghouls can enjoy. Kaneki hesitates, fearing it will taste horrible, but is surprised to find comfort in its warmth and flavor. Still, Yoshimura warns him that coffee alone can never satisfy a ghoul's hunger. He hands Kaneki an envelope, reassuring him that if he ever needs more of that, he shouldn't hesitate to ask. The next morning, Kaneki decides to return to university. His best friend, Hideyoshi, is overjoyed to see him back. Hideyoshi brings Kaneki along to Nishiki's office, but when they got to the door, Nishiki was having sex with a woman. The woman was terrified and ran away. Hideyoshi is searching for some data, but it's not there. Nishiki says it's at his place and invites him over to his house. Kaneki was fearful for Hideyoshi's safety since Hideyoshi doesn't know Nishiki as a ghoul, so he insists on coming along. Under a bridge, Nishiki suddenly attacks, kicking Hideyoshi aside and confronting Kaneki. He accuses Kaneki of wanting to eat Hideyoshi, taunting him with the question of when and which part he'll consume. But Kaneki said that his friend is not a food. Nishiki beats Kaneki mercilessly, but Kaneki refuses to let his friend be harmed. In desperation, Kaneki's Kagune, a ghoul weapon, manifests, and he attacks Nishiki with a ferocity that surprises Nishiki because Kaneki's Kagune was Rise's Kagune. Rise tempts him to devour Hideyoshi. Because of hunger, Kaneki nearly gives in, but Toka arrives just in time. She coldly tells him to go ahead and eat Hideyoshi if he wants, warning that he'll regret it forever if he does. Kaneki loses consciousness and wakes up back in Anteku. Yoshimura shows him that Hideyoshi is safe and Kaneki didn't eat him, though he still tastes blood on his lips. Yoshimura admits that while Kaneki slept, They fed him to keep his hunger at bay, otherwise, he might have killed his friend. Overwhelmed with guilt and loneliness, Kaneki breaks down, feeling like he doesn't belong in either world. But Yoshimura gently reassures him. As someone who is both human and ghoul, Kaneki can move between both worlds. He invites Kaneki to work at Anteku, promising that in time, Kaneki will find his own answers and decide for himself whether them are truly monsters. Kaneki accepts the offer and Yoshimura is gonna teach him to make their best coffee, while Hideyoshi overhears everything pretended to be unconscious. After Yoshimura taught Kaneki how to make coffee, Kaneki went downstairs to assist Toka with her work. Shortly after, Hideyoshi stopped by the cafe to thank Toka for her help, then promptly left. Toka warned Kaneki that Hideyoshi must never discover their ghoul identities, or they would have to kill him, leaving Kaneki on edge. Ryoko and Hinami Fueguchi, a mother and daughter, arrived at the cafe and sought out Yoshimura. Later, Yoshimura asked Kaneki to work a late shift, as Toka was busy with college exams. Kaneki initially refused, unwilling to kill humans because Yoshimura wants Kaneki to food shopping. Yoshimura reassured him that they acquire their food without killing. Intrigued, Kaneki questioned how they obtained their food, leading Yoshimura to instruct him to meet with Yomo to uncover the answer. Yomo took Kaneki to a cliff. When Kaneki placed his hand on a metal beam, it weakened, causing him to fall. He was saved by his Kagune, only to find a human corpse at the cliff's base. Yomo explained that these were people who had given up on life and chose to end it, revealing that Anteku consumed the bodies of those who had committed suicide. Meanwhile, CCG investigator Kureo Mato, while undercover in ghoul territory, was attacked by a ghoul, whom he swiftly defeated. Kureo questioned the ghoul about a certain item, but the ghoul was unable to answer and was killed. Yoshimura told Kaneki that he needed a mask. Yoshimura asked Toka to accompany Kaneki to Yuta's shop, despite her initial refusal. Yoshimura explained that 2 CCG investigators were active in the 20th ward, emphasizing the need for Kaneki to conceal his identity. Toka reluctantly agreed. At Yuta's shop, Yuta took Kaneki's measurements for the mask. On their way home, Kaneki asked Toka about Hinami, expressing his desire to help. Toka revealed that Hinami had been forced to leave with Ryoko, leaving her father behind. Kaneki then inquired about the purpose of the masks, to which Toka replied that they were used to evade detection by CCG investigators. The CCG continued to eliminate ghouls who were ignorant about the item they were seeking. Kaneki attempted to speak with Hinami, but she was eating, which startled him, so he left. Koma provided Kaneki with coffee to give to Hinami, as a means for Kaneki to apologize for intruding on her private space. Kaneki delivered the coffee and apologized. As Kaneki was about to leave, Hinami asked him what he truly was, and Kaneki responded that he was both human and ghoul. Sharing a love for literature, the two found common ground and bond together. Tsukiyama went to Anteku and noticed Kaneki there, but he left shortly after. Despite this, Tsukiyama became interested in Kaneki. Toka warned Kaneki to be careful around Tsukiyama because he was a dangerous person. At school, while Kaneki was reading, Tsukiyama approached him and they talked about books and Rizz. Tsukiyama invited Kaneki to have coffee with him the next day. Even though Toka warned Kaneki, he agreed to go. After Kaneki's shift, Yomo wanted to talk to him. They went to a secluded place where Yomo told Kaneki that since there was a CCG investigator roaming the 20th ward, Kaneki needed to protect himself. Yomo attacked Kaneki and easily knocked him down, then suggested that from now on, Kaneki would train with him after work. Afterward, Yomo took Kaneki to his friend Atori, who had something to tell Kaneki. Atori gave Kaneki some blood and threw it in his face so Kaneki could see that he was truly a one-eyed ghoul. Atori apologized and instead gave Kaneki coffee. Atori wondered if other one-eyed ghouls in the 20th ward were like Kaneki, which surprised Kaneki and made him curious about his half-ghoul peers. Atori asked Kaneki what he thought would happen if a human and a ghoul fell in love. Kaneki guessed their child might be half-ghoul and half-human. Atori said such children usually die because humans and ghouls are incompatible, but a small percentage survive, like Kaneki himself. Atori added that half-breed ghouls are stronger than full-breed ghouls, but their ghoul eye is on the right side, unlike Kaneki's, which is on the left. Kaneki asked Atori if he knew anything about Rizz because he had no information about her after recent events. Atori said Rizz was always causing trouble and that her death was a mystery. Kaneki thought it was an accident, but Atori said there are some rumors that someone was on top of the building when Rizz died, though they didn't know if it was true. The next morning, Kaneki met Tsukiyama and asked what kind of things he and Rizz used to talk about. Tsukiyama said they talked about literature and fine dinings. However, he remembered how Rizz insulted his taste in food, which made him break his cup. Kaneki tried to help Tsukiyama but got hurt. Tsukiyama told Kaneki about a place Rizz often visited, and Kaneki agreed to go with him. Kaneki's wound stopped bleeding, so Tsukiyama took his handkerchief, even though it still had Kaneki's blood on it. In the bathroom, Tsukiyama became obsessed with Kaneki and smelled his blood. Kaneki arrived at the place Rizz used to visit and the maid gave him coffee. He asked the maid where Tsukiyama was, but she didn't answer and left. Suddenly, the room darkened, and Kaneki didn't realize Tsukiyama had taken him to an auction hall. He realized he was trapped and forced to fight Taro. Kaneki ran from Taro until he was cornered. He dodged Taro's repeated slashes, almost getting cut. Kaneki tried to kick Taro, but it had no effect. Tsukiyama waited for Kaneki to use his Kagune. Kaneki slipped on spilled blood and Taro kicked him away. Taro was delighted and strangled Kaneki tightly, but Kaneki used his strength to break free and punch Taro. The crowd was shocked to see Kaneki as a one-eyed ghoul, as well as Tsukiyama. Taro stood up, intending to kill Kaneki, but Tsukiyama stabbed Taro in the back. Tsukiyama apologized for bringing Kaneki there and he finished Taro because he didn't want Kaneki, who was a legend, to be wasted. Tsukiyama apologized to Kaneki and told him to forget what had happened. As Kaneki was walking, he noticed Nishiki being beaten up. Unable to ignore the situation, he rushed in to help, especially since the attackers were going too far. A man tried to stop Kaneki, saying they were going to eat Nishiki because they were ghouls too. Kaneki skillfully dodged their punches and kicks, and to his own surprise, he managed to knock the man down. Even he couldn't believe he had actually defeated him. Kaneki helped Nishiki return home. When they arrived, Kimi was visibly worried. Nishiki often came home injured, and it broke her heart. She was angry at Kaneki, still remembering how he had stabbed Nishiki before, but Nishiki told her to let it go and went to sleep. Kaneki asked Kimi why she was with a ghoul even though she was human. Kimi quietly replied that she loved Nishiki. She admitted that even though he hurt others and killed people to survive, she was okay with it, as long as he never harmed her family. Then, Kimi asked Kaneki what she could do to help Nishiki. Kaneki explained that Nishiki needed human flesh to survive, otherwise, he could die. Kimi didn't know how to handle that reality, so Kaneki promised her he'd find a way to help. Later, Kimi was kidnapped by Tsukiyama. Kaneki tried to find something at Anteku that could help Nishiki, but came up empty. Then, he saw a letter on the window. It was from Tsukiyama. The note revealed that Tsukiyama had taken Kimi. Soon after, there was a knock at the door. It was Nishiki, worried because Kimi hadn't come home. When he saw the letter, his face twisted with anger. He knew Tsukiyama was dangerous. Kaneki told him that Tsukiyama really wanted him, not Kimi. He promised Nishiki that he would accept Tsukiyama's invitation and bring Kimi back. But Nishiki insisted on coming along. He refused to just sit and do nothing while Kimi was caught in the middle of all this. They eventually arrived at the church where Tsukiyama was holding Kimi. Nishiki demanded that Tsukiyama release her, but Tsukiyama refused. He wanted Kaneki to devour Kimi. Tsukiyama blamed Kaneki for his obsession, saying it was Kaneki who tempted him and drove him to this madness. Nishiki charged at Tsukiyama in anger, but Tsukiyama effortlessly struck him down. Kaneki tried to fight too, but Tsukiyama dodged his attacks and countered with brutal punches and kicks. Just as Kaneki was being overwhelmed, Toka arrived and slashed Tsukiyama's eye. The wound healed quickly, but the fight was on. Toka and Kaneki teamed up, attacking Tsukiyama together. Despite their efforts, Tsukiyama managed to overpower them both, breaking Kaneki's right arm and punching him hard. He licked Kaneki's blood off his hand and moaned in delight from its taste. Toka tried to kick him again, but Tsukiyama easily blocked her and stabbed her with his Kagune. Then he turned his attention to Kimi, intending to eat her. But as he approached, he saw the large scar on her left shoulder. In the past, after Nishiki returned home injured because of Kaneki, he lost control of his hunger. Kimi discovered his secret, that he was a ghoul. Nishiki believed that was the end for him, expecting her to report him to the CCG, just like what happened to his sister. But instead, Kimi didn't say a word. She offered her shoulder and told him to bite her. Back in the present, Nishiki charged at Tsukiyama once again, reckless, desperate to protect the woman he loved. But Tsukiyama stabbed him and knocked him unconscious. Still, Nishiki refused to give up. Even as Tsukiyama repeatedly stabbed him without mercy, he clung to him, trying to protect Kimi. Kaneki asked Toka who would win in a fight between her and Tsukiyama if both were at full strength. She said they were evenly matched. That gave Kaneki an idea. He called out to Tsukiyama and offered him a sight he couldn't ignore, Toka eating a small piece of Kaneki's flesh. Tsukiyama snapped in fury because Kaneki belonged only to him. Enraged, he attacks, but Toka, now fully revitalized from Kaneki's flesh, blocked him with ease. Toka launched a surprise attack on Tsukiyama, tearing into him with her Kagune and wounding him badly, knocking him to the ground. But instead of being angry, Tsukiyama was delighted. He hadn't seen this level of power from Toka in a long time. His wounds healed quickly, and the battle continued. They clashed fiercely, but Toka ultimately overpowered him and sent him flying. Knowing he couldn't defeat Toka in his current state, Tsukiyama set his sights on Kimi, intending to eat a piece of her to regain his strength. But Nishiki, though weakened, still had enough strength and consciousness to stop him. Tsukiyama viciously kicked Nishiki, trying to get him out of the way. But that distraction proved costly. Toka seized the opportunity and severed Tsukiyama's right arm, defeating him for good. Nishiki rushed to help Kimi, but Toka stopped him. She insisted on handling Kimi herself. In Toka's eyes, Kimi was now a threat. She knew their secret, that they were ghouls, and she planned to kill her. But Kaneki intervened. He reminded Toka that Kimi was just like Hideyoshi was to him. Just like how Toka saw Yoriko. He asked her a painful question. If Yoriko were in Kimi's place right now, could you really kill her? Angry and conflicted, Toka still charged at Kimi. But Nishiki threw himself in front of her, shielding her from the attack. Kimi's blindfold had come off, and even in Toka's ghoul form, she found her beautiful. That moment of sincerity softened Toka's heart, and she turned away, walking out without another word. After the incident at the church, Nishiki decided to join Anteku. Meanwhile, Toka, shaken by what had happened, stopped coming to work for a while. Elsewhere, Hinami suddenly lashed out at her mother and locked herself in her room. Kaneki tried to speak to her but couldn't get through. Instead, he spoke with Ryoko, who explained that Hinami was upset because she missed her father and they had no idea what had become of him. In the office of Hinami's father, Asaki, a ghoul named Yamori arrived. Asaki handed Yamori an item that the CCG investigators had also been asking for among ghouls. Asaki pleaded with Yamori not to go there anymore, that he just wanted to live a peaceful life. Yamori pretended to agree, then suddenly attacked him. Later, Ryoko explained to Kaneki that Asaki had once been involved in a dangerous underworld business in the 13th ward, but gave it up when Hinami was born to focus on being a father. Back at Asaki's office, Yamori threw him out the door, where CCG investigators Mado and Amon were waiting. They immediately recognized Yamori as an S-rated ghoul from the 13th ward and drew their quinks. They fought him together, but Yamori dodged their attacks with ease. With a sadistic grin, he told them he'd play with them for 2 minutes. In a flash, he was behind Amon, landing brutal punches and kicks. Mado launched a relentless assault and believed he had finally trapped Yamori with his quink. But Yamori revealed his Kagune and shattered the weapon. With the 2 minutes up, Yamori left, uninterested in continuing. Mado tried to question Asaki, but the desperate father used his own ghoul powers to attack, only to be swiftly and mercilessly killed by Mado. Meanwhile, Hinami and Ryoko went out to buy a book, but Ryoko noticed CCG investigators nearby and quickly led Hinami away. Unfortunately, the agents spotted them and gave chase. Hinami suddenly caught the scent of her father and followed it, leading them into an alley where Mado and Amon had cornered them. More CCG agents surrounded them. Realizing there was no escape, Ryoko released her Kagune and attacked the investigators. She turned to Hinami and told her to run to Anteku. Hinami hesitated, terrified to leave her mother, but Ryoko promised she would follow soon. Without other choice, Hinami ran, leaving her mother behind.